Welcome back to another episode on Coffee with Craner. I'm your host, Lyndon Crane, and today we have a really great guest from the Windsor Essex community joining us. She first joined Windsor Police Service as a cadet in 1994, and since October of last year, she was named Windsor's first female chief of police in Windsor Police Service's history. So I'm glad to have Chief Pamela Mizuno on the show today. It's a pleasure. Thank you, Chief Mizuno, for being here.
Thank you, Lyndon. I appreciate you having me.
So every show, I start off with a question relating to coffee. Now, where near headquarters or in headquarters is your favorite place to get coffee?
Well, these days I'm not venturing out much for coffee. So really my favorite place indoors having coffee is in Deputy Chief Jason Blair's office. So he has this fantastic espresso machine, and I think I probably use it daily.
That's fantastic. So you usually have espresso shots, or is it like a cup of coffee? What do you prefer?
Well, coffee in the morning, espresso as you get later on in the afternoon when the day starts to, get late in the day. You've got to get a little perk up with that espresso.
Excellent. Well, I'll have to get you a nice coffee with Craner mug for when you do have coffees in the morning throughout the day. So to jump into our first question, your first year as Chief of Police is coming up in October, a few days away. What would you say so far has been one of your biggest accomplishments that you're proud of?
Well, I think 2020 has obviously been quite a year for the Windsor Police Service and for the entire community. COVID has really taken us all, to a point where we have to make a lot of change very quickly to adapt. And I think our organization did very well. And really over the last few years, our service has dealt with constant change. So there's been numerous retirements and promotions that have led to many changes in the leadership ranks within the service. And through all of these changes, our members continue to provide outstanding service to our community. On a daily basis, our members are making a conscious effort to connect with our community. And as well, our current senior leadership is a strong team who are really invested in the goals and the path of the service moving forward. So, the one thing this year that we've really done, I think, as a team, we've generated a momentum towards equity and diversity within the workplace. And we're really building on some of those steps that have been taken and put into place over the past few years. So we've looked towards moving a shift in our culture, and I think there's an acceptance of a culture shift within the organization, and all ranks and levels in the organization are, I think, really looking forward to seeing some change. We want to be that organization that benefits from diversity and inclusivity. When I first took over as acting chief back in July, I had meetings with every staff sergeant and ranks above within the organization. And the one message that was loud and clear to me was that the status quo was not acceptable. So we really want to give everyone in the organization a voice. And we're also looking to hear from our community as well. How can we be better? Because there's always room for improvement. So many of the changes that we've already made internally and that we are working towards and in the direction that the organization wants to go are addressed as recommendations in the OCPC report on the investigation of the Windsor Police Service that was released back in August. So the report really validates some of those concerns that we had as a team and gave us focus and direction on our path forward. And any processes that we improve internally will really improve the service that we provide to the community. So I think that's really, the biggest accomplishment of the organization over the past year is really setting the path forward and the focus and where we want to be.
Definitely. And you've made accomplishments before, many accomplishments throughout your career before becoming chief of police and acting chief of police. So you started the Human Rights Project. You worked on that for 3 years. What was the main objective and goal behind that?
Well, really, the main objective was to eliminate any discrimination in the service that we provide to the community, as well as internally in all our processes internally. So, that started the movement back in 2011. As you said, the project wrapped up in 2014. We did have that project evaluated at that time, but there's always work to be done. And we really need to continue on some of that work that's been started. We've made some changes internally, and we've brought in created equity, diversity, and inclusivity coordinator position, which is being filled by Sergeant Yvonne we met. And as well, looking towards the health and wellness, another topic that's very important to our organization and important to our community. We've also put in place a health and wellness coordinator position, which is being filled by Sergeant Bodal. And as a matter of fact, we just had a meeting, this morning with both those officers, and they presented to the senior leadership team on the progress that they're making and, the strategy and plan that they're creating for us moving forward. And it was great to hear that information and to hear where they're at and see their ideas moving forward. So we do look forward to the progress they're making and the plan that they're putting in place.
Excellent. So for Windsor Police Service, you are the first female police chief. Why do you think it took so long to kind of get to that level and to allow a female to run the organization?
Well, the simple reason to talk about really is that historically policing has been and continues to be a male-dominated profession. So the number of males in the service is much higher than the number of females. And, it still persists today to a greater or lesser extent in different policing organizations. So with fewer women in the organization, it's easy to reason that women have not progressed to higher ranks just because of sheer numbers. There are less women. But it's not really that simple. So the other conversation is really about, the organizational culture. Predominantly white men dominated police services, and really they established the culture inside policing organizations and also established all of the internal processes for movement to different areas in the organization, as well as those that led to promotion. So I think there were, some subtle behaviors and attitudes and barriers to women advancing in the organization. With our service, very specific. In one instance, even the physical structure of the building was a barrier to women. So up until not too long ago, the emergency services unit area did not have change facilities for women, which really indicated to women that they were not believed to be, capable or thought that they could be members of the emergency service unit. Otherwise, there would have been changing facilities available to them. So, these types of things are no longer typical, but there's still some lingering attitudes and ideas about women in policing, as well as some systemic issues, that need to be addressed. So there were some cultural biases that were barriers to women, and also members representing the diversity of our community. So, step by step and day by day, we're eroding these barriers and as we uncover them and eliminating them. So the real achievement is going to be when women and people from diverse backgrounds feel like they can participate equally in the workplace. And when I don't have to, qualify my leadership as being a female leader.
Yes, and I kind of want to jump into our next question about that. So being a female leader, do you find it hard sometimes to differentiate from just being a female leader to being just the leader?
Yes, it's hard to have to qualify that. But again, like a lot of other male-dominated industries, female leaders are always, or feel like they're always in a position where they have to justify and qualify their promotions. Culturally, people in these industries, will typically scrutinize a female leader more than a male leader. And again, these things are changing, and there's been a lot of change in the Windsor Police Service over the years, and we're really addressing some of these issues. And I'm certainly not above scrutiny, but you do kind of have to ask yourself, are I and other female leaders in male-dominated industries, do we face more scrutiny than a male counterpart? I think it's always there, sort of in the background, that I'm feeling that I'm a female. And one story I know I've relayed before is, it's always from the very start of your career, you always have sort of that feeling that you have to be better and work harder to kind of prove yourself, and whether that's our perception as females or whether that's a reality, but it kind of is there. It kind of lingers in the background.
So how are you differentiating that in your role, being a female leader? How are you kind of making those around you understand that you're the same as everyone else?
Well, I think it's a lot of the things that the organization, again, sort of our focus moving forward and what we're doing as an organization to address these sort of cultural biases that exist. And I do think it's we should also point out that a lot of this, starts before you even get to the workplace, and it's really embedded. These types of attitudes and biases are embedded in a paramilitary male-dominated workplace. So I think just by identifying and addressing and working really hard to eliminate this is how we're going to tackle that moving forward.
So on the topic of leadership, leadership, you would know, it probably changes in different industries, specifically in law enforcement. What do you think is the difference between leadership and law enforcement compared to other industries and sectors?
Well, in law enforcement today, it's just a rapidly shifting environment. There's challenges really on every front. The pace of change is increasing. And, the one thing is that incidents can go from local to national in a matter of seconds. So I think that's something that, differentiates policing from other industries. And our officers are always increasingly asked to do tasks beyond core law enforcement issues, dealing with persons who are in crisis and may have some mental health issues, or being on the front line with respects to drugs and overdoses and homelessness. And there's always new forms of crime and new technologies. And there's the relationships with the community that really shift the nature of police work. As well, our stakeholders are the entire community. So it makes leadership in the policing industry a little bit different. And as well, there's the accountability. We're very accountable to our public, and we really have a lot of oversight within policing.
So was being a leader in the police force something that was always on your mind growing up? Is this something that sparked as you're moving on and growing throughout post-secondary education? How did this eagerness to be a leader in the industry start?
Well, I always had an interest in policing. So I had come to Windsor from the Toronto area to go to the University of Windsor. And at some point, a friend of mine had said she's applying for the OPP. And I thought, well, that's a great job. I can do that job. It sounds exciting. The whole thing was you're able to help people, but you're able to do that not sitting behind a desk. You're able to go out on the road, which kept me active. And it's exciting and challenging, and there's changes every day. So there was certainly not, my goal was never to be the chief of police. And just throughout the years, as you move throughout the organization, you're progressing up the ranks and you're in those leadership roles. I think, it's an opportunity to make some changes within the organization and to continue to help the community, not on the front line perhaps, but really directing, the focus of the organization and our path moving forward. And to be a part of that with the really great team that we have, both at the senior leadership level, but also our members on the front line and our support staff that really work hard daily to, support our community, and all with the goal of public safety. It's very exciting. It's a very exciting challenge. And, I'm thankful that the Police Services Board saw something in me and have given me the opportunity to help lead the change.
So when you entered the role, what was the biggest challenge for you, starting as, let's say, as a cadet in the 90s?
Wow. So there were lots of challenges. It was a little intimidating, to be quite honest. To be out there and one day I'm in university as a student, and the next day I put on this uniform and I'm sent to police college to learn, all the legislation and the tools that are going to help me throughout the rest of my career. And just the role that you play in the community. And I think the responsibility of wearing a uniform and serving the community, that's very intimidating, that responsibility that's placed on you, and understanding that challenge, and also the expectations of the community. You are held to a higher standard, and you're expected, to represent the Windsor Police Service with integrity, which isn't a challenge, but I mean, it's there. It's a huge responsibility, a huge commitment to our community.
And I have to say, Chief Mizuno, you're doing an incredible job. And we have some people in the comments really cheering you on. Sean Sinisak, what an excellent role model you are. And we're so very proud to have you as a chief. And I do have to say that, and definitely congrats on your first year as chief of police. One great job. I think the entire community is super proud to have you leading us. So thank you for joining me on the show today. And thank you for those watching. I hope you enjoyed this segment of Coffee with Crainer.
Thank you very much, Lyndon.